All right, everyone. Good evening. We're doing prep for the week. If you're watching this on YouTube, we are starting the week off with all our services at NBT free. Um, I'm Josh. I'm the lead trader there, and so I'm going to kind of go through what I'm thinking walking into this week. Kind of going over the earnings and the economic data. This week is pretty interesting because we're coming off some pretty major decisions from the Fed, which we're kind of getting signals from the market that they made a mistake with their decision not to cut rates. We saw a pretty dramatic reaction out of the VIX, climbing above 20 from 15, which, by the way, we had told members was a pretty good point to go long on the VIX. One of my traders went long on UVXY and made some really good money off that. Um, Great decision, in my opinion, into the turmoil that we're getting right now. And seeing the move that we're getting out of bonds, even just relative strength that we're seeing in the home builder sector in general. Anything related to homes or mortgages are getting solid moves. We're testing the 50-day EMA here, our daily moving average on XHB, which kind of just shows you where money's flowing into more broadly. And so that's something that I think you should definitely make a note of right now. So we're coming into this week with also um, moving past the major Magnificent Seven earnings, but there's still a lot of like interesting names coming up. Palantir, Hims and Hers, AMD, Super Micro, Uber, AppLovin's a name that we've been trading a lot, making a lot of money there. Symbiotics, a huge name that I think is should be on more people's radars, but isn't. Really like this name. Open Doors, a meme name that a lot of people are watching. Lemonade's um, I shouldn't even call Open Door a meme name. It's a potential. It's good. It's a good potential turnaround. Tempest, the Nancy Pelosi stock that she really loves. Trade Desk. We've seen a lot of strength in advertising, so that's one you should probably have on your radar. Upstart's been getting some good moves. Likes to move with Square, which just had a really good. Which shouldn't even call Square anymore. Is XYZ or whatnot. But it tends to get some great moves with that. Same with Affirm as well. So if this gets a good move, look to Affirm for a nice reaction as well. IonQ will be interesting. I believe we also have other quantum names in that sector has been broadly weak. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff to trade. I like these specific names. I like keeping an eye on them. When it comes to data this week, it's also pretty light. So expect, narratives to be the major drivers. I'm not expecting much from jobless claims. We just saw some pretty historical revisions. It just, I don't think it's anything too significant. There's been a lot of speculation that it means that we're already in a recession. Um, you know, you have to remember that you need to look at the context of the numbers and not just focus on the revisions because the data tracking methodology has been poor and the turnout for sending in those data sheets has also been poor, right? So those data sets has been poor. So I don't think it's really significant of anything yet. There's been a lot of hysteria driven on the socials, but the way I've seen it, it looks like there's just been a pause in hiring. I do think that is going to become significant if when you look at the unemployment rates spiking pretty high for new college grads. It kind of paints this story that companies are not hiring right now, and we are seeing some job loss in the private sector. And it's probably going to become a more significant story over the next few years, where you're going to see lots of job loss because of AI and a lot of difficulty for new people getting entry level jobs. But productivity probably still going to continue to climb through the roof. GDP really still really strong. So, my big idea is that massive job loss is coming in the future, and the government will probably print money to try and resolve it, and that will likely drive the market much higher. At the same time, inequality will spike. Um, pretty precipitously, you know. And yeah, I mean, you're gonna have more millionaires. I mean, Nvidia just made more millionaires than ever. At the same time, people are saying the economy is trash. uh, it's kind of like the perfect story of what's really going on at the macro level. So you gotta kind of keep your anecdotal reports in perspective to what's more broadly happening to get the full picture. And I don't think any of that's really going to come into full view for a while. So it's not anything you could trade off of in the short term. So it's something I think to be more generally aware of because it's going to have some social impacts and trend impacts. You know, if you got kids that are in high school and college and stuff, it's something that you should definitely have a conversation with about when they're choosing their careers, to think about the displacements from AIs. There's been a lot of interesting research reports. OpenAI even did a massive research report in tandem with a few major universities on the top, I think it was top 50 jobs that are going to be replaced by AI. And I think some of those positions will surprise you. So when we're looking at the broad market right here, looking at the SPIX, we were hunting for a high around here. We ended up being about 70 points off from the high, but we got the turnover that we're looking for. And now we're looking for an ABC development, likely ending in about mid-September. And before we see a continuation higher, we're kind of looking for about 7,000 as the top. Which is pretty in line with actually our beginning of the year prediction, although there's been a lot of changes since then, you know. Um, so it's been, you know, don't I wouldn't be surprised if we see more changes coming from that, from any major policy decisions. Remember, you know, you have to change your mind when you get new information. So this could be subject to change. Wave count could be invalidated, but for right now, this is kind of what we're looking for right now. We're coming into the week pretty deeply oversold on smaller time frames, and I think it's a good point to remind traders that typically these ABC counts have also smaller ABCs in them, so I wouldn't be surprised if we saw something like this for the development of this A wave. And then for the B, we could even see this try to form a double top before we get the push lower. Maybe into August, maybe beginning of September. It's totally doable that we see some sort of development like that. So keep that in mind when you're coming into the week. Typically, I don't actually like to trade ABCs on really anything, and I like to look for better strength among individual names. So in our trade ideas for this week, what I'm kind of sticking to is those individual names. I think the big ones that I kind of want to cover here are going to be Apple. I think Apple has a really nice setup here. I think the market was really hoping to see some bigger news out of Apple from their earnings, and they didn't. This company still seems like they're lagging. Personally, I'm crazy bearish on Apple. 2% growth year over year. That's not improving. The only reason this thing has any volume to the upside is massive buybacks that I think are just masking the horrible fundamentals and the lag the company's had. No real true innovations. All the innovation comes from Google, which also can't catch a bid for some reason, or sustain a bid rather. So you have this bearish pendant here that I think can see a further continuation to the downside if we get the break. I do want to mention that the weekly here is firing to the upside, so what you want to see is kind of a denial of that. If you get a solid bounce off the 202 level, look for us to visit the top of the pendant, so it can also be a revision trade. And just like we talked about for the SPY, I wouldn't be surprised if we kind of start off this week bullish. And so you can kind of trade this one both ways. You might be able to play it to the top of the pendant and then short it back on the way down. Made that major key level here, though, at 202 should send you much lower to the 196 range, which makes it a really good short idea. Galaxy is another really good short idea, in my opinion. Crypto's been broadly weak, and we expect that weakness to continue. If we actually go over here to Bitcoin, what we're seeing is that we're coming back and testing the bullish EMA on the weekly, but we're rolling over on the TTM. here. This pattern that looks to be developing looks extremely similar to this previous pattern, where you had this sustained sideways chop that ended up giving some clearing out to the downside. We also got a bearish catalyst over the weekend where China banned crypto, and that ended up causing us to get a substantial breakdown. It's had a small bounce, but this bounce has been very weak. The daily is already turning over on the TTM to the downside, and I believe the 2-day is breaking down pretty substantially. Yeah, so we have negative confluence here, and I would like to see if we get the breakdown here for the daily. We can already see it's forming the bearish EMA cloud there. So we might not ever get the plunge. We might just see like or it might not be a plunge and then sustained. It might just be a quick spike down, and that is something I would like to buy for further upside. And I'll just reiterate, I've been talking about this a lot. Hopefully it's not um, make it getting annoying at this point. I'm crazy bullish on Ethereum and looking for all-time highs here. But in the short term, again, just like with Bitcoin, like I'm looking for this to break down. Like this has been still holding some relative strength to Bitcoin, even in the downturn, but we're about to lose the bullishness on the daily. The 2-day is going to roll over here soon as well. The weekly might not actually roll over for Ethereum, especially when we look at the monthly development here. Look, you're about to flip on this monthly. When you get this flip, it probably be in tandem with a breakout on this wedge here. And that's going to do crazy things. So I'm excited about that. We're looking for that move, and there's a lot of individual names that are should probably be on your radar for that. We've been talking about them a lot in the Discord. Now, when it comes to Galaxy, this is, there's a similar short position set up on Circle, but this name has less momentum than that one, and it's less favored by the market. I think it's a lower quality name in the space. And so when I'm looking to play something to the downside, I would prefer to play the lowest quality possible, right? Play what's weakest to the downside, play what's strongest to the upside, type of deal. So I think that just more alpha here. We also see head and shoulders forming here, major key level that was a previous top. I want to see if we can get the breakdown through that, get the breakdown through the double bottom, get confirmation, and get a visit lower to 24.39. I think that's a really great setup here. Palantir is a really interesting one. Lots of people have been whining about how overvalued this company is. Yeah, so earnings on Monday. I probably won't trade it into earnings. It depends on what the pricing is on the options. There might be an opportunity there if it doesn't price in too much movement. But a revisit down to 125 would be a good fib retracement here. It all depends on what happens after earnings. But looking for a continuation here, just a break of this trend line should give a nice plunge. Just be cautious with these type of cult names. This thing's got a lot of like Tesla 2024 type of energy. So any major dips can just get bought right back up. Roblox is another name that's had a crazy run. It doesn't have the same cult energy. And in fact, we just straight up ran out of buyers at the top here. I'm looking to see if we can come back into the golden pocket. In between the 50% and the 61.8% retracement here. To the downside, there's also some major key levels around 193. So I'll be kind of looking to see if we can come back to those. A short below this wedge, this rising wedge, in my opinion, is where I want to try and come in and look for us to kind of take out some of these fib targets to the downside. At which point, I think I'm a buyer here. This is a really solid company. It's the rally's been justified. Like Palantir is also overvalued, but we're still in a bull market. Even when we're talking about, we're coming in for the highs here, this temporary high here, and we came in short on Friday. Like, we're still clearly and a bull market. And in bull markets, valuations and those type of metrics are just sales pitches that don't really matter much. Markets driven by spirit animals at this point and narratives. So keep that in mind when we're looking at Amazon here. I'm looking to see if we can lose to 1280. This was a really good short for us last Friday, and I want to see if we can get a further breakdown and look for 207. Very simple, major key levels here being taken out. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't really get an opportunity in the beginning of the week. Maybe we actually get this next week and we see like a week of consolidation there. Will be really interesting. In line with the short crypto ideas, I really like MicroStrategy here, and I want to see if we can actually lose the 358 here. There might be an opportunity if we can see good pre-market set up at the tomorrow morning. There might be an opportunity to just front run that move. Otherwise, I really want to see this kind of like triple bottom at 358 actually get a solid breakdown, and then I might look for a quick day trade. I don't like to swing trade on MSTR because it's such a crazy volatile name, but I wouldn't mind a day trade there. And then a long idea that I really like coming this week that I probably will set up this week is RKT. We've already been talking about like home builders and mortgage companies have been really strong. And we've played a lot. Like we played KVH. We caught a nice Home Depot trade kind of related to that. And I think Home Depot might have some more up move set up to it. It just might take a little bit. We had a major breakdown on Home Depot actually. This is probably like an honorable mention that we should just touch on. But we have this really nice resistance set up here, and a breakthrough of that should give us a really nice move to the upside. And even now, like looking at this on the daily and the weekly, I really like to see the confluence on the different time frames. The way we defended that breakdown, it looks like we're defending like a trend line here on the bottom. Buyers are stepping right back in on all these big down moves. So I really want to see what you really, when this trade gets a lot easier though, it's on the break of the 381.11. So there might be some scalp opportunities here before then, but honestly, that's where I want to load up size and look for a stronger move to the upside. I'm kind of curious what the monthly looks here. So the price action looks pretty good. Momentum is a little sus here, but on the shorter time frames, it still looks great. Might not be good of a move to the all-time highs, but should get some participation in line with home builders from Home Depot. I just like the theme of that. I guess the broader moves of the market. RKT though, when you're getting these massive conversations about rate cuts, and there's dramatization. Holy cow! I can't put words together. My brain is too tired. Dramatization of those. Is Jerome Powell gonna get fired? Are we gonna, are we headed into a recession? These types of things can make these companies make some really nice moves as the market kind of maybe overestimates how many cuts we're gonna get. You can get some pretty crazy moves out of these names. This name's shown a lot of relative strength and volumes kind of pouring in over the 15. It's actually building strength into this, and the R volume has, which is the relative volume, has also as well. So I'm really looking to see if we can maybe get a pop over 2138 and really start taking out maybe some more major key fib levels above that. But the entry in the short term is over 1750. This is a name where I really wouldn't mind coming in a bit sooner on a short time frame if I get a nice setup. But yeah, that's what I'm kind of looking for this week. More broadly, Fig is another one that I will mention. I am short here, and I am looking to get shorter, honestly, on a name like this. This company is insanely overvalued at almost $60 billion. They only do like 800 million in sales, trading at 115 P to E ratio. I think I had it typed out here. 178 forward PDE ratio. Adobe trades at an even higher. So the whole narrative leading up to this Fig IPO was that if you guys remember, Adobe actually tried to buy Fig, and the market didn't like it because they were gonna buy them for, I believe it was like 20 billion or something. The market thought they were overpaying, which now post IPO, um, those people might feel a little stupid with this thing trading at almost 60 billion. However, I think it's kind of like a meme driven rally. We saw something similar with Bull, where, just kind of squeezed off the IPO. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Adobe continues to get hammered and Fig continues to get hammered. Because I think that although the market thought Figma might provide us a diversification to Adobe to try to de-risk the growth of AI within their sector and their industry. I don't believe that's the case. I actually think both of these companies lose to AI. And that's just from someone who uses a lot of content creation tools. You guys know, I mean, I make all these thumbnails and do tons of video editing, and I have for years. Even before I made content about trading. It's always been a fun thing for me to do. And I don't even do editing. I use Opus AI for all my short clips now. It's all completely automated, one click for me. All the image and thumbnails that we make also made by AI. I have no reason to. I don't even open up like Canva or anything anymore. It's just all done on those platforms using AI. So I just think that that's where the sector's headed, where you just simply type out a prompt for your idea. And I don't think there's any reason to use Fig or Adobe at these high subscription prices when my OpenAI subscription is literally cheaper. My Opus AI subscription is literally cheaper, and they automate everything for me. I don't have to do squat and give me maximum flexibility, and I don't need any technical proficiency. I don't need to learn the applications that they have. Adobe is honestly kind of trash. It's like working using WordPress, where it's like a bunch of crap built on top of each other, and none of it's been like fully reworked and fleshed out. So it's hard to navigate, and it's just, you can just clearly feel what a coding mess it probably is when you use it. So it's something you could get used to, but it's just not efficient. It's just gonna lose. That's the way I see it. So I thought I would throw that one out there. Oh, I guess one more we'll talk about before we peace out is App. On the past three earnings for this company, you have an average move of 100 points on earnings, which is absolutely ludicrous. The name trades at a hefty discount to the sector, that being the advertising sector, because of the multiple bearish reports that have come out on it. But it's continued to prove that there doesn't seem to be a lot of validity to them. So I'm not saying whether that's right or wrong. In fact, this is a name that I've shorted in the past, and then last week we made a really decent bag on some longs, looking for this breakout of the wedge, and then we had great confluence on the daily and weekly. The thing about this name, first of all, if you're trying to front run this into earnings, it's doing last week it was doing a pretty good job of pricing that in. It did get a little bit cheaper on the open on Friday, and gave you kind of opportunity to reset that. But keep an eye on it. It's probably going to be easier to play the day two reaction to this, when the premiums kind of settle a bit, because this is a crazy stock with big moves. So keep an eye on it. In my opinion, it could have a much bigger move. We've already gotten the breakout, and even leading up to earnings, I wouldn't be surprised if we try to make another run off the top of this trend line, if it does get some attention. The weekly here, I think, is still holding up really strong. Like this chart, this looks, those weekly candles, 3 weekly candles there, that looks really great. So if you get a nice move off earnings, you might be looking for something like revisits to the all-time highs um, against the broad market. This thing has pretty decent alpha on longer time frames. Day to day can have quite a bit of beta, and it'll just trend with the market, which makes it bit difficult because it's like when it's in that mode where the relative volume isn't very high, it's basically like a leveraged SPY, which could be really difficult if you're in these extremely high contracts, especially if you're trying to play a little bit further out of the money. So just be mindful of that. There's going to be some wild swings. There were some wild swings in the positions that we had. At one point, they were down like 50%. We ended up closing them for a minimum of 70%, I believe. Actually, I think I took some partials for 20 and then I closed a good portion for over 70% and then over 70%. Anyways, that's what I'm looking for this week. Just a few ideas. We've got a few others in the Discord, and we'll share some more as well as the week develops. New opportunities come up. I think we've got a good open list here. We also have some swing positions. Oh, that actually is a good point to mention here on Google, that I am swinging some puts here, looking to see if we can actually break the 187.51. There's a really nice double top denial breakthrough the 191 key level, which we've been watching for weeks. Actually, we got bullish on Google. I want to say we started to get bullish in the 150s, and I actually have a share position here as well. I sold calls against it as we're starting to break down on longer time frames, starting to lose some momentum. It is still holding up on the weekly here. And you did do a pretty good job of defending this in the pre-market and then not revisiting it last week. But if you break this key level, especially if you're breaking like this pre-market double bottom, the likelihood that this thing plunges much lower is pretty high. And even with the relative strength here of Google, it's still pretty weak against the broader market, especially against the other AI names. Despite this being a leader in AI, there's just too much regulatory focus on this name, I think. And a lot of people view AI as a huge detriment to search rather than, I think, could easily turn into an enhancement if Google does it properly. And I think YouTube is also, it's a leader in streaming. It's probably worth $1 trillion. Search is probably still worth $1 trillion. Waymo probably worth 800 million. The quantum piece of Google's probably worth, market would probably say it's also worth a solid chunk. Basically they have an IBM with a YouTube with a Tesla in one company, and then a search platform on top of it that kind of serves also as like a social media and also massive data centers. And when you piece that all together, and this company trades at crazy discount for what it is. And if they break it up, the pieces of that company probably come to fruition and actually start trading at appropriate valuations of what they should be. So if there is a split up on Google, I think it's a massive opportunity. We've seen splits before. Just think about even the GE split. What happened to the pieces of GE once they split that apart? It'll be something similar, where they'll go on crazy runs and trade at far better evaluations than they ever did together as an entity, as their own entities. I think that made sense. My brain is very tired. I'm going to go to bed. We'll have a great week this week. I can feel it in my bones. There's a lot of opportunities here. So get ready. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll post a link to join the Discord. That link will expire in a few days. All links to join the Discord. I'm not going to post them very frequently, and they're all going to expire pretty quickly. And this is just how we're gonna manage having a free portion of the community and to get people access to the free education, but also not making it an open house for scammers to come in and be annoying, because we hate scammers. So have a good one, guys. See you Monday morning.